Let's talk a little football here. Brian Kelly spoke with The Advocate about LSU's quarterback situation. Obviously, as you look at it, Garrett Nussmeier returns as the starting quarterback. You brought in Michael Van Buren from Mississippi State in the transfer portal. He slots in. Colin Hurley is away from the program right now after that car accident that he was involved in, so no update on Colin Hurley's status as of yet, but he's certainly not in school or with the team right now. And then you have Juwan Johnson, who you have moved to quarterback from running back / star, however you want to phrase it. And I told you when this move was made, if you tell me that Juwan Johnson is playing quarterback as part of a package, he's actually going to rep with the running backs as well, that I can certainly get on board with that. I'm just not good with taking Juwan Johnson completely out of the mix at star, completely out of the mix at running back, just to go be the emergency third-string quarterback and take him completely out of any meaningful action. That's what I was vehemently opposed to when this idea was floated and we saw that the LSU official roster had him listed as a quarterback. Well, Brian Kelly tells The Advocate that between Colin Hurley, Juwan Johnson, and Michael Van Buren, none of those three players will play in 5 games this year. All of them will preserve a redshirt year. And this makes sense for all three of them for a number of reasons. For Colin Hurley, one, he skipped a year of high school. So you're just getting that back, basically. There could be medical here, obviously. You didn't play much last year, so he needs to catch up life experience-wise, assuming he returns in a functional capacity to the football program. As I sit here right now and I talk to you, I don't know what Colin Hurley's physical situation is as a result of that car accident, and I'm not even going to speculate because I don't know anything about it. I just know that he's at home recuperating. So he needs time. That is beyond discussion. So that makes a ton of sense for him. For Juwan Johnson, he basically spent last year kind of cross-training between two positions, kind of settling at running back, not really playing defense. It was, in my estimation, without being at every practice, kind of a lost year for him in terms of development, certainly on defense. He needs to slow that clock down a little bit, and that makes a ton of sense. And then for Michael Van Buren, yeah, if he's not the starting quarterback, this guy's proven he can be a starting quarterback in the SEC. He was a former 4-star recruit. He had committed to Oregon, signed with Mississippi State, becomes the starting quarterback after the injury to Blake Shapen, and has a relatively successful year, making 8 starts for Mississippi State. He threw for 1,800 yards, threw for 11 touchdowns, added 5 rushing scores, was the SEC Freshman of the Week, threw for 306 yards and 3 touchdowns against Georgia. That's a guy that showed some things in his first year, but that's a guy who's proven he can start in the SEC, and he's not going to start this year, so preserve your year. And while you preserve that year, you have an opportunity to get those guys into 4 games. And Brian Kelly told The Advocate, we're going to get those guys in there in some packages to change things up from Garrett Nussmeier. And I'm all for it because these guys are really athletic. Last year, Michael Van Buren was certainly a dual threat quarterback at Mississippi State. He, as I mentioned, ran for 5 touchdowns, showed some speed and some elusiveness, and I think absolutely can be a change of pace quarterback for you. And then you go to Juwan Johnson, who's as electrifying a player with the ball as LSU has on the roster. He's got an entire high school career that's the best and the most productive in Louisiana history to back that up. And what have we been talking about with this LSU offense? What's been the biggest talking point moving into next year? It's not who's going to take over for Kyron Lacey, who's the next Mason Taylor. It's, can they run the ball? You're overhauling your offensive line. You couldn't run the ball last year. Can you run the ball? Well, here's a way to make it work. Did you watch the 2 halves of the Texas A&M LSU game? A&M put a fairly immobile quarterback back there. Wigman's a decent athlete, but you get the point. Couldn't move the ball. Decided to put Marcel Reed in there, just run it a little bit. Seemed to work. I'm not suggesting LSU is going to have one of these two guys that just runs up and down the field on everybody like A&M did on LSU for the second half. But you understand the benefit to the running game when you bring in an athletic quarterback as part of a package. And Van Buren's certainly a more polished passer than Juwan Johnson, but you can't completely dismiss the idea that Juwan Johnson could make you pay with a pass, considering he was a quarterback in high school for 4 years. So I think this is a good idea. Your numbers are obviously a little bit skewed if you're going to let Van Buren play 4 games and you're going to let Juwan Johnson play 4 games. That's only 8 of the 12 on your schedule, so you can't do this in every game, and I don't believe Colin Hurley is a quick add to this list. But I like the idea of this. Give the defensive coordinator something else to look at. Give yourself some versatility in the run game. Don't burn a year of eligibility with these guys. Michael Van Buren might be a 3-year starter at quarterback at LSU after this season. It's conceivable. So I think this is a good idea, and I think this is the type of thing that spring ball was made for. I don't need a ton of Chris Hilton in spring ball. I don't need a ton of Whit Weeks in spring ball. Clearly coming off the broken leg, so you probably won't see a lot of him, but the point remains. He's played 2 years of football at LSU, spring ball, whatever. Jacoby and Guillory can use this time to keep rehabbing the Achilles, but you know what you got in him. Same thing goes for Ashton Stamps. Like, DJ Pickett needs the spring. He needs to play the spring. Brad Davis, with his position group, they need the spring. They need these practices to continue to figure out what the best offensive line group is for LSU. But if you're going to put in packages to run the football with some athletic quarterbacks that may either put Garrett Nussmeier split out in the slot in a Wildcat formation or may take him off the field completely, well, this is exactly what that time of year is for, that kind of stuff. And I am for this. Again, if you gave me my choice, I'd have Juwan Johnson at either running back where LSU's thin on numbers or at star where you thought he was, as of last year in the fall. That's what I would do with Juwan Johnson. But I can get on board with this because they've got to find some creativity and, more importantly, some productivity in the run game. And they didn't have either one of those last year. And the roughing game suffered because of that. The offense suffered at times because of that. I think the defense suffered at times because of that. So I like this idea. I think it's perfect for the springtime. I think it's well thought out with the 4 games you can play in redshirt. So I think this is good stuff for the LSU offense, and I'm hopeful that we get to see a little bit of that as we move forward in the spring. We're inside a week to LSU on the Ponderosa for some spring football practices. They'll crank things up this coming weekend, and they'll be at it for I think 4 weeks with a few practices every single week, and you got spring break in there every year that kind of throws a wrench into the plans. But LSU will crank things up in earnest for spring at the end of this week. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.